Good evening. Calling to order a meeting of the Tomball ISD Board of Trustees for the October workshop meeting at 5:32. For the record, a quorum of the board is present. All trustees are in attendance tonight. The meeting is being recorded in accordance with Government Code Section 551.128. I will now turn the meeting over to the superintendent, Dr. Martha Salazar Zamora, to proceed with recognition.
Thank you so much, President McStravick, members of the board, and those of you in the audience tonight. It is with much excitement that we start this evening with a very special recognition. This comes once a year, always in the month of October, but I want everyone to know that this recognition stretches 12 months, every single day of the 12 months, as we want to recognize our absolutely talented and very, very dedicated principals in Tomball ISD. So for principal appreciation, tonight I have Dr. George Flores, our Assistant Superintendent of Schools, that will make his way up. I just want for everybody to know that Dr. Munoz would absolutely be here, but the flu bug struck.
Thank you, Dr. Z. President McStravick, members of the board and cabinet, it is a pleasure to be here with you today to recognize the 2024 and 25 campus principals of Tomball ISD. This group, we are extremely proud of these principals. As Dr. Z alluded to, they should be celebrated every single day because of the work that they do, the intentional work that they do to lead these amazing campuses. They have amazing faculties to work with as well. But as goes the leader, as goes the school, we really believe that. So we definitely want to highlight them on this very special month and highlight them on this very special day here with you all. We do have our Chief of Staff, Dr. Amy Shindowolf here, that's going to hand out some very nice giveaways for them. So we're going to start with our elementary schools. Canyon Point Elementary School Principal, Ms. Karina Avila. Next, we have Creekside Forest Elementary School Principal, Ms. Treva Mador. Next, we have Principal from Creekview Elementary School, Mrs. Chris Winstead. Decker Prairie Elementary School Principal, Tammy Sebesta. From Early Excellence Academy, we have Dr. Jessica Perez. Grand Oaks Elementary School Principal, Miss Erin Johnson. She's running just a little bit behind. Lakewood Elementary School Principal, Miss Deanna Porter. From Rose Hill Elementary School, Principal Gabby Avianeda. Timber Creek Elementary School Principal, Mrs. Tara Bailey. Tomball Elementary School Principal, Melissa Baudois. And our newest elementary school, West Elementary School, Principal Chad Schmidt. Wildwood Elementary School Principal, Dr. Alexis Vale. And last but most certainly not least from our elementary schools, because she is the reigning Principal of the Year for our elementary schools, that is Miss Teresa Sullivan. Board of Trustees, this is our elementary school principals for 24-25. Let's please give them one more round of applause. Yes. So we're going to keep the recognitions going with our excellent secondary principals as well. So we're going to start with North Point Intermediate School Principal Dr. Caitlin Kane. From Oakcrest Intermediate School, Principal Sarah Rush. Tomball Intermediate School Principal Dr. Kelly Marciando. Creekside Park Junior High School Principal Renee Miller. Grand Lakes Junior High School Principal Dr. Ken McKinney. Tomball Junior High School Principal Charlie Grzeski. And reigning secondary principal of the year, that's Mr. Kevin Williams, Principal, Willowwood Junior High. From Connections Academy, we have Principal Bob Frost. Tomball High School Principal, Mr. Chris Scott. Tomball Memorial High School Principal, Miss Jennifer Collier. And from Tomball Star Academy, we have Dr. Victoria Brinkman. Ladies and gentlemen, before you, we have the wonderful secondary principals of Tomball ISD. Great job. And in true Tomball spirit, I'm going to have our elementary principals come right back up because we had one sneak in from Grand Oaks Elementary. We've got Miss Erin Johnson. Come on in.
Congratulations again to all of the Tomball ISD principals. I'm not sure if you heard the commentary, but Erin Johnson was completing an interview and she did hire the right candidate and said she had to do the Tomball experience and stay to the end. So that's what it's all about. Thank you. Okay, that is our one and only recognition. Very important one that I wholeheartedly want you again to know that in a time and space where you can choose to lead wherever you want to, we are grateful that you have chosen, you're on both sides, I need to look both ways, that you have chosen Tomball as your first year, as your 15th year, as your 30th year. Every year matters. You are making a difference in the lives of the children in our district. So thank you again. Can we give them one more round of applause? I would be remiss if I didn't say the Office of School Leadership, Dr. Amy Schindewolf, Dr. George Flores, Dr. Mindy Munoz, of course, Crystal and Melissa, all together making a difference to support these great leaders. Thank you. All right, we have several reports. The first one is the 24-25 Tomball ISD District Improvement Plan and Board Goals. Dr. Michael Webb, our Chief Academic Officer, will lead us in this conversation.
President McStravick, Dr. Z, members of the board and cabinet. Before we begin, I just want to point out one correction on item A. This is the presentation for the district improvement plan. The board goals actually cannot be delivered until the paper report is released from TEA. So to begin the presentation this evening, I would like to start with a review of where we ended last year in the district improvement plan 23-24. Priority one was in the area of recruitment and retention, and was supported by three major goals. We have some significant outcomes in this area. Number one, a 91% retention rate. We also have seen a 3% increase in teachers' feedback on the quality of coaching and feedback from their instructional leaders, as well as a 3% increase across the board in teachers' ratings of their campus climate and culture. Dr. Reeves has led an extraordinary effort this past year to help support over 300 teachers in earning a designation through the teacher incentive allotment, as well as the human talent team being instrumental in supporting a grant award for $450,000 through the Houston Endowment to support paraprofessionals aspiring to be classroom teachers, all within priority one. The second priority is our academic, our foundations in reading, math, our academic goals. To begin in the area of math achievement, we've had record performance in Algebra 1 at Tomball High in the area of approaches. Also, we have record performance at the master's level at Tomball Memorial. For masters, Tomball Star has the highest score that is possible in the area of approaches in Algebra 1. All three high schools are rated as A in math, and all of them earn an A through F raw score of 95 or above. Reading growth has been, we've seen some significant reading growth at the high school level. English 1 retained an A rating. English 2, and I'll say this as often as I can, English 2, in the area of English 2, almost 3 out of 10 students scored a perfect score on the ECR on last year's ELT exam. Without exception, across the board, grades 3 through 8 retained their A rating in the area of reading. Our AP testing, we saw a 5% overall increase in the composite and a 10% increase in those scoring at level 4 and level 5. And we continue to be above the state and the national average on the PSAT and the SAT. In connecting high school to college and career opportunities, we saw significant enrollment in CT courses. We are now at 5.5%. Bob Thompson and Carla Sandoval also have led efforts to increase our partners to 148 industry partners in our community. Partners such as Hewlett-Packard, Spring Hill Growers, even including Houston Methodist at Willowbrook. Part of our parental outreach and engagement with the community, we now see over 110 industry partners on our CTE advisory board. Partners help support us with guest speakers. They help support us in establishing internships for our students. A part of the community outreach within this goal also was our establishment of the Parent U. We had over 400 participants sessions throughout last year, and our first one actually this year we had over 100 participants at Creek Elementary. Collaborative practices. In this area, you recall, you'll see this is where we emphasized on science and social studies because of the collaborative nature that's needed in order to meet new expectations in both of those content areas. But of course, one of the signature features of Tomball ISD is we are a model PLC district. We now have 14 model PLC schools. Science achievement, biology 1 moved to the second ranking among all comparative districts across the state. Fifth grade science moved into the top ranking among comparative districts across the state. We can continue to see U.S. history retaining the #1 ranking among comparative districts across the state. And the work of Allison Reed, we'll talk more about this later on in the agenda, but securing an award of $300,000 to increase the instructional materials in grade 6 through, of course, U.S. history in the area of social studies. Effective student support. By state law, we are required to provide intervention through what's called House Bill 1416 to any student, grade 3 through high school, who are not proficient on the STAR exam. We saw about a 1% differential in the number of students requiring intervention this school year. And again, that's with rapid enrollment growth. And then in the area of behavioral health, Steve Stills has led efforts to secure over $200,000 in funding from the Tomball Regional Health Foundation. Over the last 7 years, this is just shy of $1 million. The grant funding from Tomball Health Regional Foundation goes for a number of our programs, including RISE and Clear Hope. We saw 468 students through Clear Hope just last year, and also the establishment of a mental health counselor at Tomball High School, which he directly interacted with over 250 students last school year. As a result, we do see an increase. We did see a slight increase in suspension, but we've seen significant decreases in in-school suspension and increases in the restorative practice. One of the only district improvement plan goals from last year that was required for special education compliance reports from TEA was disproportionality in the discipline of African American students that are in special education. Shortly after our presentation last year, we received our updated compliance report, and we were below the state threshold of 2.5%. So what that means is if you were 2.5%, you're 2.5% times you're 2.5% as likely to experience suspension. You're 2.5% as likely to receive a certain license. 2.5% as likely to be placed in a certain special ed setting. But last year, again, right after this report, we were under the 2.5 risk ratio. And this year, we just received our report, and we are under the 2.5 risk ratio for our second year in a row. So you will not see this goal on the district improvement plan for this upcoming school year. Terry Williams and Special Services Department, there are very few special services departments in our region that have no discipline disproportionality. We are now one of them. And then to finish off with our student supports, we saw a 1% increase in the growth of emergent bilingual students as measured on their Pell Pass. Right, as we move into the district improvement plan for this school year, our district improvement plan can't stand alone. It's a collaborative effort with teachers, instructional leaders at the campus, also with our parents and community members. There are 5 meetings throughout the school year. We have many parents that are sitting on the campus committees, and we are continuing to recruit parents on the district committee. The purpose of the district improvement plan really is to get a handle on random acts of improvement that we have at all of our campus, and to seek alignment in how the campus improvement plan and goals are associated with the district improvement plan. And just want to assure you that the district improvement plan is not in conflict with strategic plan 2030. All of these plans have a number of goals, and they are all complementary of one another. First priority in the district improvement plan for this year is literacy, specifically foundational at the pre-K through the really enhance and increase our science of speech and reading, our support of the phonics, the phonemic awareness and phonics progression with the use of instructional materials at that level. You also see in the area of literacy, again, a renewed focus on student writing, on our ECR performance, both from grade 3 through 6 and at the high school level. We are shooting to increase by 5%. We're shooting to increase by 5% at the secondary level of those that are scoring 7 to 10. Remember, one out of 3 of our kids are already scoring a perfect score. And then trying to increase by 5% our students that are at performance level 5 or above in our early elementary grades. Next area, Moreno has our most aggressive goal. This is to increase Spanish reading achievement at the elementary level by 8% at the meets proficiency level as based on the STAR. We're continuing to work on personalizing PSAT results with students at the 8th grade level, ensuring that we implement interventions for PSAT and SAT at English 1 and Algebra 1, and also having targeted intervention within our coursework. We're shooting for an increase of 2% on our PSAT results. Mathematics and science, you'll see that mathematics, science, and social studies, the metric that we are shooting for is the A through F composite. The A through F composite is the most sensitive metric to change, the most sensitive metric to increase, and also those to decrease. Well, when you're an A-rated district, I don't think it's wise just to focus on the A rating, but to be a precise precision in how we earn those ratings. So we're looking at math performance of grade 3 to 8, shooting for a 3% increase, which would put us at 67%, and then also a 3% increase in science, which would put us at 65%. Again, there's a lot of change this year in science, moving from 2D methods of teaching to 3-dimensional. We have new curriculum resources from kindergarten all the way up to the high school level, and we have new standards across the board in science. In the area of social studies, again, we are trying to embed literacy in our social studies content. That is achieved by making sure we are updating our pacing guides, our standards, and extending our path extensions in our curriculum guides. And shooting for a composite score of 72 also would represent a 3% increase in the area of social studies, grade 8 in the U.S. district. I think it's important to keep an emphasis on the behavioral health of the district. We have engaged in a major project this school year that's led by a coalition at the district level, which we are developing systems to support classroom teachers at every single campus. We are supporting our teachers through tools and strategies at Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. You'll see teachers now have access to behavior contracts, behavior reporting tools, and monitoring tools that are developed. We don't think it should be on the teachers. We don't think it's the teacher's responsibility to develop all the tools and all the resources that's needed for behavior. We don't expect that for academics. So this refocus on behavior is really trying to get as much support as we can into the campus. For example, we were at Tomball High School this morning, all morning, working in professional development with their teachers on our behavioral health model. I also think that measuring behavior by suspensions or restorative practice has gotten us to this point, but I think to move forward and to be innovative in the future and to be sensitive to the changes that we're seeing in our classrooms, we need to ask people, how do you feel about behavior? What do you rate your level of professional learning and behavior? Do you think you have the tools that are needed to help support the behavioral challenges that you see in your classroom? So what we are attempting to do is increase the favorable ratings on a teacher survey with items associated with student behavior. We're going to ask teachers twice a year, beginning at the end, how's it going with the behavior efforts of the campus. Also within this instrument, teachers will be able to select and prioritize what they feel is important in terms of professional learning for behavior. Not that we're not keeping our eye on suspensions or restorative practices, but we've talked about as a team that often when we judge behavior by suspension only that sends the signal that that's something that we don't do. That's not the case. Or if we only measure it by restorative practices, then that's what we want campuses to do. We believe that those are byproducts of good systems of behavior support. So goal 9 and our final goal is trying to address the behavioral health students in the district. I do want to point out, however, there are no required actions as part of the district improvement plan. As I mentioned before, the results-driven accountability report requires us to do nothing specific in terms of special education or ED students. We're still waiting on preliminary accountability results. We've not had those for our second straight year. But again, we're looking at our STAR scores. And what we have is the reform of the district, but nothing that's required. Are there any questions that I can answer on this year's district improvement?
Hey, Michael, real quick. Would you be using something like Panorama to do that survey in Goal 9?
Yes, we've embedded those 5 questions into the panorama survey.
Okay, thanks.
Just a couple comment and a couple questions. So, CTE, what Bob and Carla are doing in this area over the course of the last couple of years has really responded well to our discussions and our emphasis, certainly what we're doing by building out programs at the Tomball Innovation Center to enable new programs, but continued utilization on the existing programs before legal studies, aviation, and all that. I'm impressed. I think we keep the pedal down. I'm very interested in the conversation that I know we're going to have in the next few months around where do we see careers next. We talked about HVAC. We talked about a variety of looking at what our region demand is. And so I'm eager to kind of build on that and consistent with our improvement plan. What's next? Right? I know we talked about that, but I wanted to just highlight something you shared this week. This one in particular is very interesting and exciting for me. So Tomball ISD has extended its partnership with Baker Hughes. I think we started at Willowwood Junior High, supporting girls' interest and involvement in science, engineering, technology. It's an initiative where the year-long program got master classes, career spotlight sessions, 6-week project featuring hands-on STEM challenges. It will be in collaboration with Baker Hughes employees, and these female students will take part in an event at their facility, a tour of their site. I can't tell you how awesome that is to hear. I would actually like to invite myself to participate if I can in any way as a student, because what I know, based upon my research, is it gets down to a sense of belonging. Can I see it? If I can see it, then my goodness, it's possible. And so I love what we're doing in
It
this area.
definitely speaks to your doctorate, for sure.
Yeah.
Right, very good. To your comment, though, I want to remind this board that we work closely with the Tomball EDC. They're actually celebrating their 30th anniversary, and I'll be at the Economic Outlook meeting, I think this week, as a matter of fact, coming up. And that's important as a partnership, that we look at what does our community need, what does the greater society need, what positions are out there, but what are we seeing locally? And that's something we talked about, those of you that have been on the board for a number of years. You talked, we listened, and we're excited about the great work. I know they're back there. They always hide back in the corner. I see you guys. The great work that's happening in CTE and in all other areas. As a matter of fact, if you're able to join us for board walks, we will take a little visit over, and those of you that are brave enough might be able to get into the simulator for aviation. That's a little teaser to clear up your calendar.
I had a couple follow-up questions, Dr. Webb. STAR, what's our general sense of participation rate of students in STAR? And what I'm getting at is, what's our opt-out? What's the vibe? What's the sense of participation?
The number of families that are opting out their students is very, very small. And Tomball ISD would probably say less than 1% or even that.
You had, in a previous presentation, shared with us that we transitioned to computer-based STAR testing. Similar question,
believe we had all take the
100%.
computer-based test. I don't believe we even had a student with a disability requiring a paper.
We are, if a parent wants a paper version, we provide it. Okay. Probably not for tonight, but I think we should have a workshop session on behavior. You've done a great job over time describing some of our escalation path and the behavior issue. Certainly, we look at suspensions, we look at the restorative practices metrics, but I just think as I'm hearing kind of post-COVID, right? I know we're in year 2024, and behavior has changed. I'd like to learn a little bit more about the experience that a teacher has in the classroom and ultimately the principal, and what are our practices, and at what point does it reach, hey, you don't belong in our school district, right? I want to know that. No need to answer that question, that last one. But I'd like to understand the experience a little bit better, because I hear behavior. Some of it's tied to bullying, some of it's tied to just random acts, but I'd like to learn more.
We can certainly do that. Go into a deeper dive in a workshop setting in the future. There continue to be concerns about behavior, and the individuals that we honor today will tell you at each and every day there can be something that makes them, want to ensure that we're utilizing best practices and looking what restorative practices and discipline looks like. But we definitely like to share in the future what we do, because we do it very well. That doesn't mean that we don't have challenges and that we don't have perhaps a heightened sense of change when it comes to student behavior and discipline after COVID. As we see so many things have changed, that's certainly one area that none of us would say it doesn't look different, because it does. But I think our approach also looks different. The amount of dollars that we're putting into this and grant dollars that we, the team, have continued to find, to bring in, to leverage, and the partners, the amount of partners that we've been able to partner with in an ongoing area of concern. So yeah, it's a pocket of growth at any given time.
And the ask is to leverage the framework that Dr. Webb used tonight.
Sure.
Talk to me more
Yeah.
about that goal, some of the underlying actions and activities.
Hey,
Thank
so
you.
along those lines, Michael and Martha, I'm not sure how it melds or if it melds at all. Maybe they're completely separate. But there was a lot of emphasis within Exceeding Excellence 2030 that's around this item as well. So I don't know if that's a standalone kind of topic, or if there's some way
I think there's
that maybe they meld
partnership.
together a little bit as you're refining action steps in that area. I mean,
I agree.
Michael, does that help you to have some of that?
All of that, let's use what we've got. I'm not asking for anything
Yeah.
incremental or
Yeah.
extra. Let's just have a session on more detail. The committee worked that, we all looked at it and said, hey, that makes a lot of sense. I'm
Right.
kind of interested in the detail. What are the?
We're working through this.
Yeah.
Happy to share those at the right time in the near future. All right.
I've got some comments and questions. And thank you, Dr. Webb. And thank you, team, for addressing my litany of questions via email. Priority one, just think it has to be acknowledged how awesome a 9% retention or attrition is when the state average is like 14% attrition district-wide, district-wide educators staying in their campuses or in their district. We have said as a board, I think one of the goals is high retention, maybe the highest in this area. And I don't know, is that the highest in this area? The highest retention? 91% keeping our educators?
If not the highest, very close.
I wouldn't be surprised if we're close to the highest. And so I just wanted to toot a horn and say, great job. I think that's our administrators doing an incredible job of inspiring their educators. I have 2 employees, and I have a hard time charging them and inspiring them. And certainly owner problem, okay? But to have 60 or 80 or 150, it is an amazing work you do by inspiring your teachers and keeping them motivated and keeping them doing the great work they're doing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. That is a tremendous achievement because we've talked about that. That's priority one. Priority 3, the CTE. Thank you for jumping on that, Michael. Carla and Bob, incredible work. We had a 2% target. There's a 5.5% realized. That is fantastic. And it just has to be, again, I want to toot the horn and celebrate with you on the efforts in what you're doing. Priority 4 is the goal on collaboration that every campus be PLC model. Is that
Yes.
a goal? That is the goal. And we're 14.
Yes.
And we'll be maybe, what, complete in 2 years?
Well, as new schools come on board, they have to work towards that, towards the designation.
Data
We're sure how
collection,
many-
reviews,
Okay.
visits.
Okay,
It's a process.
gotcha. All right.
Ooh, I know the GE. The length of that process
3
is
years.
a minimum. Oh, I was going to say 2, so I was a year off. It's just that you make it happen so fast. It felt like 2. They're amazing.
Okay, so that's the goal. I love to hear that. I think that's one of the best things that's happening. Maybe that's a big part of why teachers are hanging around. They really feel supported. I ran into one of our administrators at a volleyball game. She said, "I've never felt so supported." She's new to our district, came from another district, and said, "I've never felt more supported, more encouraged, more equipped to do what I do on our campus." So it's really, really spot on with all the efforts to support through collaboration and PLC. Priority 5 on student support, and I'm glad you as well brought this up, with behavior, because I think there is an opportunity there for us to do a deeper dive. And one thing I keep asking, and this is not like you're not answering, you have answered as best you can, and it may be impossible to measure, is how our character curriculum impacts our ultimate behavior data. And I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you measure that. I just would expect that it's doing some work. I mean, maybe it's like the goldfish being asked, how's the water? You can't, goldfish can say, what water? They don't really know because it's so endemic. It's so much a part of the culture of the campus. It may be impossible to measure, but because we have put a lot into that, a lot of resource and time and energy and focus and all these model campuses, if there's a way to somehow quantify, and I won't be around to see this, but if there's a way to somehow start to quantify that, how that character curriculum is impacting it campus by campus, I think that would be a wise thing to have at hand, at least to justify. So those are all my questions. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Lee took all the good comments, but I thought of some more while I was sitting here. First of all, very impressive set of results for the last year's goals. One thing I didn't hear called out yet was the parent you aspect of it. I think that's very important, right? As we try to grow as a district and increase our partnership with the community, I see a lot of value in those sessions. I went to all the ones last year. The first one this year, I was out of town. The next one, actually, we're doing a good job of communicating. The email just went out October 15th, right? So another one to go see. So I think those are very good. And I think you said that's tomorrow night. That's right. Across the street at the Cooper Road. Yeah. I think you said there was 100 people at the one at Timber Creek.
Yep,
a few
the
weeks
topic
ago?
was ADHD
Okay, and 400.
total.
Okay, so we've already achieved 25% of that with just the first one on one end of town, and I think that's great. So really great job to that team. It's an important topic with the ADHD last time. Important this time too with the digital citizenship and generative AI. So those are really great things. I wanted to ask a couple questions real quick. On the results, I can see some of the raw scores, right, may have decreased in some areas, but yet comparative to other districts, we held our own or increased. What do you attribute that to? Is that the star kind of raising the bar? Is that the state kind of increasing what the standards are, and that's why the raw score may not be exactly where you would have liked it to have been? Is that what's leading to that?
It's a direct result in mathematics of the state raising the benchmark, the number of items that have to get correct for each proficiency level. Absolutely. We did not see a decrease in the A through F raw, English 1, English 2, or grade 3 through 8 reading. Saw a slight dip in science and social studies, but you see an improvement in the comparative ranking among our most competitive districts. So, yes, there's just a little bit of a wiggle up and down. But to understand the context, we have to understand where our competitive districts are, where Allen, Coppell, Wiley. So we did wiggle a little down, but for example, in fifth grade science, we surpassed Coppell.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the number 1. even with a slight decrease in A2F raw score, we improve in our competitive ranking.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, that context is really important, right? Because it's not like these tests are static year to year, especially in some areas. The state is really trying to raise the bar, which I understand and appreciate, right? And that's good for us. So I really appreciate that context. And then my second question was, as you look ahead to next year and the goals that you have here, which are good, do you see are any of these considered stretch goals? Do you feel very comfortable that we can get those? And if you feel very comfortable, should we be stretching more or not?
Spanish reading is a stretch goal. We're looking at an 8% increase at the meets level. That's a stretch goal. When we are now asking teachers about behavior, when we think about training, when we think about the tools, that's going to be we're going to get some honest feedback. That's not an easy goal to meet. And then I think if you're looking at already, so for example, we're already at 95 in Algebra 1 at all the high schools or above, and we're still looking at a 3% increase in the So I think all of them are attainable, but you do see stretch in math, Spanish, and
Yeah, I mean, those are honest answers. I appreciate that because as we know, and as you name our comparative districts, right, we're a premier district, but we're not done, right? We're going to continue to try to raise the bar, and I appreciate that from everybody in the room, right? We can't just sit back and say grade A rated. We're going to continue to try to do even better and better each year. So I appreciate those honest answers and making some stretch goals. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Webb.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The second report we have for this evening is the 24-25 Tomball ISD Campus Improvement Plans. Dr. George Flores, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, will lead us in that report.
Thank you again, Dr. Z, President McStravick, and members of the board and cabinet. Just honored again to be in front of you to discuss the 24-25 campus improvement plans, just kind of setting the stage for this presentation. What we're going to present to you is, legitimately months and months and months of work that goes into the planning and preparation, and they're in the middle of executing these types of plans. As they're sitting before you right now, they're already thinking about improvement for tomorrow, but also how they would do things a little bit differently next year from August to October to have a strong start. So improvement never stops. And with this piece, we always go through campus improvement planning as just as the previous presentation, to remain the top school district in the region, to remain one of the premier school districts in the state. So that continuous improvement cycle is what drives us every single day. That does come from our professional learning community culture, but also the individuals that we have leading our schools. The graphic that you have in front of you was something that was presented to all of our campus principals at our leadership retreat to start the year in July. And to Mr. McLeod's point, when we celebrating the retention of our staff, if you look at the very middle of this graphic, it talks about school culture. And we would argue that one of the reasons why our teachers choose Tomball, why our principals choose Tomball, and our parents choose Tomball is right there in the middle of that school culture piece is super important in everything that we do, every decision that we make, and that cyclical process that you see around here, with safety being at the top of everything that we do, every decision that we make is at the forefront of our principals' minds. To be a principal in Tomball ISD, you have to be very dynamic. Not only do you have to be the lead learner when it comes to safety, but you have to be very well versed in curriculum and instruction. You have to be very well versed in behavior strategies. You have to be very well versed in professional learning communities. You have to be very well versed in communication strategies. Because they are at the front of everything that campus does. If you look at CWTs, that stands for classroom walkthroughs, feedback. We are making sure and prioritizing that classroom walkthrough process with our administrators being present in the classroom, giving quality feedback to our teachers on a routine basis, but also from an administrative lens, making sure that we're calibrated in the goals and aspirations that we have from our campuses and from our teachers when we're delivering that type of feedback. At the bottom, you'll see clarity and support defined. When we're going through this campus improvement planning process, this is not our campus principals sitting in their office and designing this plan by themselves. This is a collaborative process that involves their campus staff, their teachers, their instructional leaders, parents are on the CIT committees, the campus improvement teams, also business partners. So this is a very collaborative process, but that clarity piece is super important. And our principals are responsible for making sure that every one of the staff members that are sitting in front of kids, sitting in front of parents and parent conferences, that they're able to articulate what the goals and objectives are for their campus. So we have that motto of having high expectations, but also coupled with high support. And you'll see at the bottom there where it talks about support defined. Not only do we have very clear expectations and goals for our students, for our teachers, and for our faculties, but our teachers also know where to go for support. They cannot go at this thing alone. The teaching and learning is very scientific. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of time and effort and expertise. So they have to know what the expectations are and how to go, where to go for support when they need it. And then lastly, you'll see that classroom environment is we are focused on ensuring that there is a positive classroom environment where students can learn at very high levels, and we believe that all means all. And everything that you can think of from the teaching and learning process is embedded in that framework when it comes to the classroom environment. So we shared this with our campus principals before they submitted their campus improvement plans to us as the assistant superintendents with these types of themes in mind and related to the district improvement plan as well. So kind of a system-wide process that I wanted to discuss with you, that whether you are a pre-K campus or a comprehensive high school, these are some of the system-wide processes that's kind of some guideposts, if you will, if you're a principal in Tomball ISD that we use to leverage what steps that we take to design improvement in our campuses in our district. The first is, and Dr. Webb alluded to this, is really understanding their campus comparative groups. That is something that is provided to us by the state of Texas. We have a group of 40 campuses that the state says, well, you look a lot like this campus demographically. Your grade band is very similar, and the things that you serve and provide to this particular campus looks very similar. So that's a good starting point to have. Again, we're very competitive in Tomball ISD, so we want to make sure that the things that we're doing, the goals that we're setting, are not going to set us up, if we achieve them, that we're going to fall behind a competitive campus group within our group. So they really understand leveraging the top quartile of those campus comparative groups when they're designing their SMART goals that you see on their campus improvement plans. The second thing that we do for our campus is that every single campus principal has to understand the state accountability system framework. Sometimes it's a moving target, I'll be honest with you, which is why it's important for us to really go into a deep dive with our campus leaders. My partner, Mark White's a big part of that from the Office of School Leadership, is making sure that he provides any updates to us, any cut score changes, anything that's going to impact one of the three particular domains. So our principals have to be well-versed and understand that game to be able to design goals that they can set for their teams and for their schools that are going to put them at the upper quartile of their campus comparison groups, but also ensure that school accountability rating is at that A. The next thing is when we discuss data in Tomball ISD, we are really focused on the MEETS and master's level. MEETS is really saying that they are on grade level performance, and master's level is really showing that they are on an above grade level performance track. So those are really the two achievement factors that we really pay really close attention to because, again, we want to make sure that our students are performing on grade level and exceeding grade level on all of the assessments that we prescribe. And lastly, we've done some really good work with the leadership definition here in Tomball ISD. We try and keep that, we do keep that alive and well here in the district. That has been our leadership pipeline, how we've been able to ensure that our administrators understand what it takes to become an effective leader in Tomball ISD. So one of the competencies that we're focused on this year is maximize, which, we know that we understand the state of school funding as it is now. The cavalry is not coming. We know that. The best options that we have are in our schools right now. So we are really leveraging the strengths and talents of the individuals that we have right in front of us It's stretching some folks that say they want to do this thing called leadership or administration or counseling or department chairs or team leads. We're really leveraging those folks to really meet the goals that we have set out. So we're trying to maximize the staff that we have in front of us to meet these goals. So if we look at the elementary school, if I was to really talk through a deep dive in all the things that our elementaries are focused on, I could be up here all day. But really wanted to encapsulate some common themes that you might have seen in as you were reviewing campus improvement plans at the elementary level. I do want to make sure that I put out there that what you have in front of you of campus improvement plans, that those are not static documents, that those are things that continuously evolve as new data comes in, as new legislation comes in, as updates come in. We have to be able to adapt and strategically plan over the course of time to change goals. If we meet goals that we see it's already December and we've already surpassed a goal that we've set in a particular area, we have to have the flexibility to go back and say, you know what, like what we did is not good enough. We're going to continue to expand that goal. So one of the themes that you might have seen is at least 80% of our pre-K through fifth grade elementary students, we want them demonstrating on grade level proficiency. One of the things in Tomball is we do not just put all our eggs in one basket. We have a multitude of assessment measures that we use to determine students that are on grade level proficiency. So the assessments that we have from beginning of year to middle of year, we use that as a gauge to be sure that we are meeting that goal of at least 80% of our students performing at or above grade level. It goes into that second theme you might have seen. So for those students that are demonstrating below grade level work, we know that if we are saying we want kids to grow at least 1 year, we're basically ensuring that they're going to stay behind. So for us, we are intentional about planning for those students that are showing below grade level work, that we are growing them at least 1.5 years on those multitude of measures. And we have a lot of assessments and things that can show us the grade level equivalency, that they're moving in the right direction through our universal screeners and things like that. So we're not guessing. We don't guess on anything. We're very intentional. We're very targeted with the information that we have. And then lastly, you'll see this as a theme across all of our campuses as well. Writing is high stakes right now with the embedment of ECR and SCR, that portion in state assessments, and it's not just on the reading language arts side of the state assessment. They're having to write in other content areas as well. So the stakes are as high as they've ever been with writing, so we want to make sure that we are writing across the curriculum. We're exposing students to that technical writing and structured writing system early and often at the elementary level as well. You guys know my partner, Dr. Munoz, is out today, so I'm going to do my absolute best to shed some light on some of the great work that's happening on our secondary schools, because they have amazing work that's happening there as well. So some of the themes that you might have seen at the intermediate level of our secondary schools would be also to increase the percentage of students and their percentage of STAR ECR. Again, it's not just an elementary school. That's in our secondary schools where writing is a heavy emphasis as well, to be sure that we're maximizing the amount of points that students can earn on these assessments that they're taking on EOCs and STAR. Also, to increase the number of students that are reaching all levels of achievement across the board in ELA and math and science. So that's in all levels. And lastly, for intermediate schools, the goal to strengthen community and family engagement. For our junior high school and high school campuses, again, you'll see that meets and masters theme again. That increasing that level of percentage, that's going to be individualized by campus. So taking where the students were last year and by cohort and making sure that we're setting goals to increase that meets and masters level percentage. And then also increasing the CCMR, which is really impacting our high schools as well. And then lastly, strengthening the core value alignment that will address some of the vertical culture and the career character education framework as well. So some of the system-wide support that we have available for our campuses to take advantage of is at any moment in time, we would expect to see district leadership on our campuses, whether that's from the curriculum and instruction department, Office of School Leadership, our operations department. When our campuses call, we have that model, we come running. We also have very structured visits. Every Thursday, our executive team is deployed out to campuses to just check in with our campus leaders to be sure that if there's something that they need, that we're able to capture their needs on the spot and be able to problem solve or even offer a solution on the spot. So we're not waiting until it becomes an issue. That's an opportunity for the executive team to just get some scheduled FaceTime with our campus leaders on a continuous basis. Our CNI team also has regularly scheduled visits from our directors down to the content specialist as well, to be sure that we're keeping a pulse on the curriculum and instruction side. That way those needs are being met as well. On the quarterly side, myself, Dr. Munoz, and our SSOs, we spend a lot of time with our campus principals when, for example, right now, we just finished up our beginning of year TPES conferences. So the goal setting that our principals do takes place with myself and Dr. Munoz. We align that with our district improvement plan that's aligned with the CIP, that's aligned to their TPES goals. So we try to have that alignment so there's no competing interest, that they're working in tandem together. And then lastly, you'll see our school support officers there who are just our side-by-side coaches. We have Crystal Romero-Mueller. We have Melissa King-Knowles. We also have Dr. Jeff Bailey, a school leadership officer, who plays a big part as well on our team. Our assistant principals get a lot of attention from our SSOs as well through that leadership pipeline coaching. They do support the PLC process, support team leads and ILT members, and really identify next level ready leaders that we can maximize, if you will. And then lastly, you talked about our directors and content specialists who, again, offer that PLC support. They will work side by side with teachers. It doesn't matter if you're brand new or a 30-year teacher. All teachers need a coach, and that's what they're there for. And they also design targeted and individualized professional development, professional learning for campuses based on needs. And that's often collaborated with the campus principal to make sure that it is aligned and meeting their needs. So that was a big 30,000-foot view. I'm open to take any questions if you have any.
Yeah, so Dr. Flores, I got one. Actually, I got one clarification and one question. On the clarification, though, the campus competitive or comparative group, you mentioned the 40 campuses, but I believe Mark White has schooled me on that enough to realize that 40 campuses varies from campus to campus.
Yes, sir, it does.
The 40 comparative campuses for Rose Hill could be a completely different group than the 40 comparative campuses for West. Right?
You're absolutely right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify on that. The second one, which I actually should have asked of Dr. Webb, and you can defer to him if you want. When we were talking on the secondary level about science going from 2D to 3D, give me a little bit of insight into that. Is that just being able to, for geometric type of acumen? So,
Moving from knowledge-based science to science that's based on evaluation and analysis. It's science peaks that are based on engineering principles. It's how well you use science, not just how well you know science and remember science.
okay.
Big
So almost like moving, maybe analogous is moving from the more formalistic writing to a more fluid writing style. You're not trying to just do a formula type writing. So now you're able to work with the material and come up with something. But it's in the science area.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Speaking like a true educator there.
Oh, thank you.
I like that.
Thank you, Dr. Flores, for answering that second question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got a good chief here, sir.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you, Dr. Flores. Can you remind me how these plans are used? Is it like weekly? Are they consulted monthly? Is it laminated and like put it in the back of your britches like a coach and you carry it around? You're always looking at it like a game plan? Just help me understand how they're used week in, month out, etc.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's almost like a game plan, Mr. McLeod. I love that analogy too. And it is used to set the stage for the campus. So when the teachers come back in August, and we're getting to know each other and we start getting down to business, that's one of the first things that our campus principals discuss is what are our goals, what are our priorities for the year, and our teachers design their department goals. Our teachers design their personal goals around the campus goals. And when the teachers come together for their collaborative time, when they come together for their planning sessions, those things are typically available to them on their agendas on this is the goal that we have set for third grade math or for biology or whatever that particular goal is. Those departments, they own that. And when they present data, when they collaborate, when they're talking to their department chair that's going to discuss their progress in their instructional leadership team meeting that's happening next week, it's all related to the goals and objectives that they've discussed and set the stage for in the beginning of the year. So it's really the game plan and the playbook of everything that sets the tone for the school year and how they measure and evaluate themselves.
Just to follow up, so thank you for that. Remind me what vertical alignment is or vertical culture, because I just need some help kind of framing that. I've got this idea in my brain like, well, that's making sure your first grade curriculum aligns with second, third, fourth, fifth. Am I in the right?
You are in the right direction, yes, sir. Okay. So when you think about vertical alignment, our campuses, if you think about an elementary campus, you've got kindergarten or pre-K all the way up through fourth, or kindergarten through fifth grade. So that vertical alignment is really when teachers, for an example could be, when teachers are really working together where they can build learning on each other. So our fourth grade teachers might have a vertical alignment planning session with their fifth grade teachers to talk through what are those essential learning standards that we're seeing our fifth graders come that they're not as strong in, that's hurting them in fifth grade. Or these are things that they're doing in fifth grade that you guys are doing extremely well. We want you guys to keep doing that. So that vertical alignment is super important. So from grade level to grade level, there's that communication, and they're not working in silos where fourth grade teachers might just be guessing that we're doing a good job, but they're actually getting great feedback from their counterpart that's on the same campus in that vertical alignment way.
More collaboration. I love that. I just wanted to make comment because I looked through all of the plans. I looked through all of them and highlighted a few things like vertical alignment, highlighted some of the campuses sending their educators to other campuses, like, I guess, rock star classrooms where they need to learn and lean in. I think that's brilliant. I love that idea. I'm assuming these are all shared amongst the admin, like they put theirs together, and then is it, hey, let's have a slumber party and all read each other's campus improvement plan?
It's
Well, that
almost
sounds
as good as
miserable,
that.
I'm sure.
It's almost as good as that. So one of the things that we've done the last few years that I think we've gotten great feedback on is, again, before these plans are finalized and submitted to myself and Dr. Munoz, is the principals have an opportunity for a half day where we call it peer review. So we pair them up for half a day, and they talk through their campus improvement plans, and they meet with whether they don't have to be an elementary school principal to an elementary school principal. We're intentional about pairing elementary with secondary and vice versa, intermediate with a high school. So they're getting good quality feedback from their peers, the ones who are the experts in the room, and that's before it comes to my desk. So they're getting great ideas, and I think a lot of their action steps, they get to kind of beg, borrow, and steal those from each other because the answers are in the room with this great group that we have, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk about a couple portions of this. Thank you, Dr. Flores. ECR, SCR is mentioned here quite a few times. I think that's really appropriate, right? And I'm not sure, I'm not an expert on these things, but around the dinner table, ECRs are a topic at my house amongst my girls. I think that's a really nice way to go about solving problems and using the kind of RACE acronym as you try to answer a question, where you're restating and answering and citing. Those are really good lifelong skills that kids are learning. And I have a third grader that's learning that and is very proud of herself when she finishes RECR, and it's her first year going through that, right? So um, that's how you interact as an adult as well, right? You get an email, you're kind of restating it back, you're answering their question, why I'm saying this, what your sources are, those sorts of things. So I see those as really good things to focus on. It's going to be something students will use for the rest of their life, and yes, it's applicable to STAR and all that sort of stuff as well. But I really like that that's there. The only thing I didn't know was from the very first theme, Goal 1 of elementary schools, at least 80% of K through 5 students will demonstrate on grade level. What is it today? So is it 79% today, and we want to go to 80? And it's okay if you don't know the number, but I just wasn't sure, is that moving us up, or is it really moving us up because we're behind? I understand the 1.5-year growth. That makes perfect sense. If you're only growing a year, you're never going to catch up, so that makes perfect sense. I just didn't know. Help me context that.
Yeah, so it definitely depends by campus, but overall, as a district, we are at the beginning of the year, like we're already showing that as an achievement at least the 80% currently. Now, when I use the data from our universal screener, Star Renaissance is the example. It is a sliding scale, right? So as the year progresses, the standards kind of go up with it, right? So we keep a close eye on that. So out of the gate, we are looking very strong academically with that universal screener. That's a little bit more objective because it's a standard assessment, and it kind of adjusts based on the students, how they answer the questions. If you look at things like IRLs, instructional reading levels, that's done by the teacher. That could be depending on the calibration of that teacher and that particular day of the assessment. That could be a little bit more subjective, but if we were to use Star Renaissance, which is how most of our goals are written, we're already showing that type of achievement at this point.
Okay. So would you anticipate that having to go higher, or because the year goes on and we are adding things to their backpack of knowledge, so it's getting heavier over the year, you want to still make sure that they're there, they didn't fall behind where they should be in the future?
Sure. So that I put that on there as a at least. So we do not want to drop below 80%, and that's really to capture all campuses. So certain campuses right now, we've got certain campuses that are at 97, 98% at or above, and that's why campus improvement plans are written a little bit differently. Some of our principals might be not laughing, but have a little, just because they've got feedback for me about adjusting their goal based upon their cohorts of students that's individualized for their progress. But as a district, that's why it's written as an at least, because we don't want any campus to drop below that 80%, but we already have campuses that are 95% plus at or above. So we adjust the goals based on that.
Thanks.
Two comments. Alignment is the word that just really resonates as I have absorbed the campus or the district improvement plan and then the campus improvement plan. I probably said this in the past, but it feels like the alignment is better than it's ever been. This is heavy stuff. This is weight. This is meaty. But it gives me a great sense of what's happening at the different campuses, and it's well aligned with priorities and where we as a board and having conversations with you are focused. So I'm very appreciative of the alignment.
Thank you. Alignment is important. It's a word, but it means a lot. And it's not easy to achieve. I think it has taken some time to have the level of alignment that's there. If you notice at the bottom, and I won't ask you to go back, but under the DIP, you saw the 3 boulders of teaching and learning, curriculum and instruction, of high quality instruction, trust, and collaborative culture. Those 3 boulders have a lot to do with the alignment. Now, if you fast forward to the campus improvement plan, you will see a different set of words, and that is consistency, compassion, competence, and communication. All of those, again, starting back to the arrows, which I just love that, because arrows could be everywhere, but you want that, back to your word, Dr. Pratt, that alignment. And it's this team, this incredible team that continues to make that happen.
And you know, I'm pretty scrupulous and I look at the details, right? This is well aligned. Definitely. I appreciate that. The second is actually on this slide, school culture. As I've shared in our team building activities, when we first were contemplating putting our oldest child in kindergarten, we evaluated that and vetted that, and I'm just going to throw some names here. In this Campus Principal Appreciation Month, but here's why we're still here as a family. It starts with Valerie Petrozelka, and then that led to Holly Jones, Deanna Porter, Daryl McReynolds, Kate Catherine, Brooks, Carol Houston, Chad Smith, Mike Metz, Jeff Bailey, and now Jennifer Collier. And along the way, there were influences of Karen Graves and Kevin Williams and Charlie G and even Dr. Munoz. That is, those are, when I see that circle of school culture, all of those folks appear in my mind. And when I talk to parents picking out avocados at ATB, it's about school culture. It's talking about these individuals and why we, the Pratt family, continue to choose Tomball ISD. I have a choice. I've always had a choice. But these leaders promoting that school culture on those campuses is why we remain here. And I thought it was super important to continue to voice that.
I believe that, and I love that you're sharing that because I think that's why so many families continue to move. I asked for the student count today, and we continue to creep up. Not as fast, of course, at this time of the year, but every time I get the count, we've gone up quite a few students. And so there's a reason why people come here. There's a reason why people stay here. And I think there's certainly a reason why people work here, but there's a reason why people choose to serve this community. And I want to thank each of you for your service to this community as school board members in a time where not everybody wants to serve and certainly not always for the right reason. So we certainly appreciate that, and I know I do as a superintendent of schools because it's paramount to our continued success that we have individuals that want to serve and do it well for all the right reasons. So thank you. Tina. Okay, sorry. Your mic was on.
I'm going to chime in though real quick, Martha, and just, it wasn't so long ago that Mark and I had binders that were about at least 6 inches thick, and every principal got up on the podium and spoke about their campus improvement plan. I won't say that was the most effective way to communicate the issue. I'll also say that it wasn't as meaningful, it wasn't as aligned, and it wasn't as personalized to the campuses. And so I know this, Mark White and your team had worked on this. I believe it started pre-COVID.
Oh, yes.
And we've made tremendous strides in the way it's presented and in the way it's aligned and in the way it's personalized. So I just want to point out from those of us that have had a little bit of experience on the board, there's a vast difference in looking at the campus improvement plans and the district improvement plan. We've come a long way. So I appreciate y'all's efforts.
That phrase was in my head. Boy, we have come a long way. I remember challenging Mark White when he first agreed to come to Tomball from a not so neighboring district, I guess. It was a bit further away. And I said, okay, this is one of the biggest tasks. And he said, okay, I'm on it. And it was a challenge. And I'm glad his head isn't full of gray hair. But he made that work. Okay, I can see that well from here. My love for him runs deep. He knows that because he's not afraid of a challenge. And this was one that we needed. Everybody in the room needed for that alignment that you were talking about, Dr. Pratt. And so many of you have been a part of the journey. It's been a great journey. It's not over by any means, but it does start with this. This is not just something you stick in your back pocket. This is something that you truly believe in. And like our district strategic plan, these are forever evolving and continue to grow as we grow. Thank you for recognizing that. Everyone in this room has had a hand in this work. Some far more than others. Campus leadership for sure knows the support. Thank you.
So, just one thing that I know that there's a lot of work that goes into campus improvement plans and then also into the district improvement some cases, there may be some formula. However, one thing that I find fascinating, there's central variables that's always different for our students, yet we always tend to be consistent as far as the outcome. So kudos to everyone who makes the plan work, rather than just have it be
Thank you for that. I want to make one other comment because I worked in districts in the past where the alignment wasn't always there, even at administration. And so the fact that we have two individuals that just sit by each other, they are in close alignment. And that's important that Dr. Webb and his entire strong team and Dr. Schindewolf and her team, of course, everybody else. But in this case, in this particular case, both of those need to understand that the support is there and it is there. And that's really when the magic happens. So I appreciate leadership at this time. All right. Okay. Great. I think you're done, sir. Next on the hot seat, not so hot seat, I promise. Emergent bilingual program update. And if you recall when we did our meet the staff, this doesn't always happen in our district, but I have to comment from student teacher to teacher to campus administrator and now to director. We have our very own Dr. Paloma Moreno, Director of Multilingual Programs, to talk about emergent bilingual program update. Dr. Moreno.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Good evening, President McStravick, Dr. Z, members of the board and cabinet. I am excited to be here today to provide an update on our emergent bilingual program here at Tomball ISD. So today's agenda is going to include having basically a program overview, what our emergent bilingual programs that we offer in Tomball, the academic progress that the students in those programs have made, our EB reclassification numbers, as well as our bilingual exceptions and ESL waivers, and what our professional development plan is to support learning. So TEA does require that we provide emergent bilingual programs for any student in the state who has a language other than English in their home language survey during their original registration in a Texas public school. And that triggers an assessment, and if that assessment tells us that they need a program to support them in language, then they are identified as emergent bilingual students. For students, for any language that we have a number of 20 or more in one single grade level, we do have to provide a bilingual program. And for everybody else, then that we would provide ESL support for them. So as you can see in Texas, just like everywhere else, there's a lot of growth in our EB population, and approximately 1 in 4 students in Texas are considered emergent bilingual students. So you can see that rapid increase from 2017 from 18% to 18.8 up to 24 this past school year. Ours looks similar in growth, right? We talked about, I think it's been mentioned a lot about how much we're growing, our enrollment is growing. And that is also reflected in our EB students that we serve. So we are currently at about 15% of our student population is emergent bilingual. The last time that this report was ran, and so like Dr. Z said, every time that we run this report, this number changes just a little bit depending on how many students we've identified in that time. But 3,375 was our last count. We have in our bilingual program, which is our 2-way and 1-way dual language programs, we have 1,046 students. In our ESL program, we have 2,361. And then we also have alternative language programs. We'll cover a little bit of that when we get to waivers and exceptions, but these are students that are served by a teacher that may not be certified. So we had 55 of those last year. The campuses with the highest EB population are Canyon Point Elementary, with 387, making up about 47% of their building being emergent bilingual. As you can see, the next one up would be Tomball High School. So they have a high number, but low percentage compared to their enrollment. Rose Hill Elementary, 317, and 43% of their building is an EB. And then Tomball Memorial. And then Timber Creek Elementary, 236 students with about 29% of their enrollment being identified as emergent bilingual. The programs that we offer in Tomball are our two-way dual language immersion program, our one-way dual language immersion program. We also have content-based ESL, which means all 4 of their content teachers are ESL certified. We have ESL pull-out, and so if that happens like at the high school, where the reading teacher is ESL certified and they provide services. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we also have an alternative language program. If we have the case where any of their teachers are not certified, then they would be served in that capacity. At last count, we had 85 languages that were spoken in Tomball ISD, with the top 5 being Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, Mandarin, Portuguese, and Arabic.
Dr. Moreno, I'm going to interrupt you if I may. I'm not tracking on the 55 students on the previous slide and the asterisk here on alternative language program and not having certified teachers. Can you help me understand that a little bit better?
Yes,
I'm not
so
tracking.
so a lot of those are going to be like students that might be like in a self-contained program where they have to be with a special ed certified teacher, and that teacher may not have the ESL or bilingual certification.
Okay.
And so then that student would still be served. It would still provide accommodations and supports, but because that teacher's certification is not the one needed to provide the student, then we say that the program that we're doing is an alternative language program. We can't say that they're in a bilingual program if the teacher's not certified.
So we have qualified, certified teachers in all of our classrooms. There's just a nuance here associated with the emergent bilingual program where we may not have a qualified, certified teacher for at least 55 students.
Where they may need to be by priority in a SPED setting, where that person may not have the additional certification required.
And our means to potentially solve the gaining the qualified, certified is through our Grow Your Own, through just constant recruitment by Dr. Reeves. How
Not
are
through Grow
we-
Your Own. That's a little different. That would be our paraprofessionals that we're trying to help become certified individuals. But that is something we could look to as far as the initial certifications. But it's working with the staff that we have to help them gain that additional certification that they need.
So with those 55 students, basically they would be students that maybe spoke a language that we don't have a certified teacher
That's
certified in
doing
that
dual
language.
SPED
So it
and.
could be-
Dr. Webb, you want to add to that? Oh, light's not on yet, sir. There you go.
In many of these cases, the significance of the disability outweighs the language difference. So we're not out of compliance by serving a student with a significant disability in a special education classroom that also is a second language learner. And although we do accommodate for the language differences, the needs of the student are more based in the disability.
Good question. though.
But
Very
are
good.
you providing, though, a
Paraprofessional.
certified, someone who is certified to provide, I mean, you're talking about this is the alternative language program, so there's somebody who's qualified who's doing something in addition to just handling the SPED issues.
Yes,
Correct.
and all of our campuses have EB instructional specialists, and so that's where they would go in and support, or if there's paras. That number was a little high this last year because we still had, and I'll talk about it in a second, but our Vietnamese students, we do have the number that we would need to provide a bilingual program. We are on a bilingual waiver, a bilingual exception, sorry, one's waiver, one's exception. And so last year, some of those kids were coded in an alternative language program. The guidance has since changed since last year, so a lot of those kids are going to switch back into an ESL program. But this was the number last year.
But in all cases, those 55 students are all getting some type of bilingual instruction or support.
Correct.
It's not that they're just getting their SPED support, they're also getting another component to it.
Correct.
And then the extension of that for me, John, is that all parents of those 55 are aware, we're communicating, we've got a program that each of them are aligned to.
And they understand that the primary goal is to support their special education needs with this as additional supplemental support. Very good question. Thank you, Dr.
Just some highlights from our EB summer programming. So we do have a pre-K and kinder program that is required by the state. And so we have a lot of fun during the summer with those friends that are rising kinder and first graders to prepare them and help close that language gap as they make it into the next grade level. We also have Superstar Camp, which mirrors our superhero camp, but is around a lot of our Spanish instruction for literacy. And then our secondary ESL students also have a summer opportunity. One of the cool things that they get to do is go on a field trip. And so, as you can see, they went to the Museum of Natural Science this past summer and had a lot of fun. And then we embed a lot of learning. And again, that's to close that some of the language loss that may happen during the summer being at home. So as we talk about academic progress, in comparison to our regional group, as you can see, these are STAR tests. So in reading in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the state does provide both an English and a Spanish test. For reading, many of our EB students take the test in Spanish. In math, our language of instruction for the most part is English, but some of our students are still taking that test in Spanish. But most of these students are newcomers. And so as you can see, for our reading, our regional rank is first across the grade levels in both English and Spanish. And in math, that is the same, except for that second place that we went into for Spanish in math in 4th grade. But like I said, that is a really small number of students that take that, and then we're targeting those students to make sure that this year would they be ready to take the test in English, or if they're going to take it in Spanish again, have we acquired enough skills that we would be able to grow? And so we're really proud of the work that has been done by our teachers and our campuses to make this happen. But like you saw earlier, like destination excellence, right? And so I think that there's a lot of room that we can continue to grow. And so it says first, but I want to be really first at the really top. And so we're gonna make sure that we're focusing on that.
I'm going to interject. Great slide. The region slide. We think about wonderful. How do we think about the comparative school district or the comparative campuses, which is really love to see that slide. Like, that to me is where the real competition is. If we're choosing, if we're concerned about competitive, this is great, but
Correct. And we are looking at new comparative groups moving forward, as we've talked about.
Right.
And so when we have that, that's something we can put together for a future slide. But this is a very pretty.
And honestly, Michael, I don't know if what we've used as our comparative group in the past is actually
they all have
the
the same-
right
I don't think it's
comparative
relevant.
group
For this.
for the EB. We may want to look at,
separate.
yeah.
I agree.
That might be something Mark White does in his spare time. He has at least 3 minutes in the day. I mean, the whole 3 minutes.
Certainly region 4, right? Which I guess is when you call region, you're talking about region 4.
Region 4.
Okay. But
This
there may
is-
be some districts south of here, right? That we might want to better
Look at
apply.
that.
But we're talking like 40 districts,
Oh, at least.
43.
43 districts in
Should
Region
know that.
4, and we're at the top in all of those.
Yes.
Good.
Fantastic.
And I think another part is that we also have to consider, like you said, the number of EB students that our comparative districts may have, also the types of programs that they implement. And so, for example, if a district is implementing like an early exit program versus us that we have a dual language immersion program, it may not be appropriate to compare those two because it's just a different program that they're implementing. And so we'll continue to do that. But yeah, definitely we'll take that.
Paloma, I get a question. You discussed how the reading test, the math test can be taken in Spanish or English. With the two-way dual language that we're doing at Rose Hill, do we see those students mainly taking, because they're not picking it up till 3rd grade, do we see those students mainly taking the test in English, or is it the same kind of district-wide?
The EB students or the non-EB students? In the
EB
2A?
students.
The EB students for the most part. So what we do throughout the year is we're collecting data points to determine a language of strength. And then once we determine what language they would do, like what is their strength, that's
Right.
the language that we get to pick. In about January is when we make that decision.
Okay.
And so we have, especially if they've been with us since kinder, we have
Right.
lots of data from over the years to determine what is the best way to measure learning for this student. I would say
Yeah, okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but okay. But you're doing that, whether it's in the two-way dual language program or if it's at another
Correct.
campus, all the EB students are, they're looked at with their history and said, which language is their strength for taking the test?
Yeah, and that happens one way, two way. For our ESL students, it does, because they may not have obviously a test in their language that they speak. But if they are newcomers, so let's say they come in a 7th grade, they're ESL because we don't have a dual language program at that grade level, but they have very little time in the U.S. schools. Oh, they don't have a test, so they would have to take it. But a 3rd grader in that same situation, that maybe the parent waived bilingual services, so they're in ESL. So there is options that we can consider, but
Okay.
definitely we make personalized decision for each student.
Okay, thanks.
So the next piece is TELPAS. So TELPAS is a test that our students take that measures language proficiency. It measures 4 different domains, so listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And then it puts those all together for a composite score for us. So this graph is one that shows growth. And so if you see the one on the left, you have 22, 23, and then at the top you have 23, 24. And so you can follow the line to figure out, okay, so if I was beginner in 22, 23, 253 students scored beginner again the following year. And then 355 students that scored beginner grew to intermediate, and then 138 actually grew 2 spots and went up all the way to advanced, and then 29 went from beginner to advanced. And so the same when we look at the intermediate line and advanced and then advanced high. And so we can see, one, we have about 29% of our students that are growing 1 or more levels in our composite score. And then we're also determining the level that our students are maybe not making progress in. So we can see that there's a big number of students that scored advanced the previous year that scored advanced again. And so those are students that we can target to figure out how can we support to get them to that advanced high portion, because that's what they have to score in order to meet reclassification criteria to no longer be a EB student, but instead go into monitor status. And so when campuses pull this report, they can click on those numbers and the list of student names comes up. And so then we can really target by student what we need to help with. And we can also run this report by domain. And so if we need to see, for example, kinder and 1st grade, this assessment is holistic. And so a teacher takes what they've observed and they have a rubric and they follow that. 2nd grade, this test goes online. And so now these students they have headphones on, they're recording, a TA listens to them and scores their speaking, right? So that is a piece that sometimes we see a drop in, especially students that may have scored intermediate and then gone back to beginners. That's usually the case that we see on that. And so we really want to target, like I said, those students by need. And so it's a lot of practice. Kids get shy when they get on headphones and they have to talk. They're used to being quiet during testing. And so a lot of times we have to remind them that it's okay to talk because they're in a testing environment and they forget that they need to talk. And so sometimes it doesn't reflect what we know that our kids can do. But definitely what our EB instructional specialists focus a lot on is ensuring that these 4 domains are embedded into classroom instruction every day, making sure that it's an objective that teachers are focused on, that they're teaching through language and literacy, the content, right? Our content is what we're learning. How we're learning it is these 4 domains. Speaking of reclassification, our summary for this past year is 542 students, or approximately 16%, met reclassification criteria. In order to meet reclassification and move to monitor status, you have to have a TELPAS composite score of advanced high. For students who take STAR, they have to have a meets or master's on STAR, or English 1 and 2 EOC. And then any students outside of the grade levels that they take those tests have a norm reference achievement test approved by the state that they would take. And then there is a subjective teacher evaluation that also has to determine that the student is ready to go into monitor status, because in that status, then we're not able to provide accommodations anymore. And so if the student is still requiring it, we don't want to take away something that's making them successful. I kind of spoke about this before, but bilingual exceptions are for what we have to submit to the state for if we have, like I said, 20 is the target number in a single grade level. But if you have 20 in one grade level, you have to provide a bilingual program. So right now, we meet that criteria for our Vietnamese students. And so as you can see in our pre-K and EE, kinder, first, second, and fourth, we are above that 20 threshold. And so we will be submitting an application for a bilingual program exception where we provide the state one reasoning why we would be unable to provide a bilingual program at this time, what we're doing to try and make it happen, and then what we are providing instead. And so as you can see, in order to make this program, a program of this size work, we would need 11 Vietnamese bilingual certified teachers. We currently have one. And so we have one in the district. And so what she does is she floats into campuses that have the highest numbers to support on the campus. And so she pulls small groups, she coaches teachers, she works with the EB specialist, and then she's able to provide that native language support that they may need, especially at those younger grades like pre-K and kinder. We did post a position to see if we could get a larger pool of applicants. And so we're going to do our due diligence to see if this is something that we can make happen. We've also started researching a lot of neighboring districts that have Vietnamese immersion programs just to check them out, see how they're doing, and then see their models as well. But I just wanted to let you know that we will be submitting an exception again, and that these numbers continue to grow over the years.
Hey, Dr. Z, so I don't remember talking about this.
We
The
have.
bilingual, well, maybe we have. I don't remember talking about it. Give me a timeline. Do you see this developing?
So it might. We're going to monitor it. We kind of have seen the numbers creep up. And as they continue to do that, we even looked at what does it look like? What are the certificated people out there that speak Vietnamese that are interested, that are education certified, that want to do this? When we looked into that last year, weren't very successful, attempted this year. There are several districts kind of in the same situation. I had a conversation with higher ed today, and this is one of the comments I was telling Mr. Lewandowski when he arrived a little early for the meeting, the fact that there are just different things that higher ed can help us with. This is one of those areas. Do people in your community, if there's a growth of Vietnamese speaking individuals in your community, we would hope that there's a certified teacher that would want to teach, but they may not want to. They may be doing other things. They may be staying home with families. They may whatnot. But this is something we're monitoring closely because the numbers do continue to creep up, and they're staying there. Because it's one thing to get a surge, but then you don't see that in multiple grades. But we are seeing the consistency. So therefore, as part of the waiver we're putting in a plan, you'll continue to hear about it. You probably don't recall because you've only heard about it for about the last 2 years. It's come up.
What was
at
that,
least
Michael?
the
What did
last
you
2
say,
years.
Michael?
Yeah, it probably been monitoring it more the last 2 years.
I'm not the only one with amnesia here tonight.
So,
Yeah, Dr. Arteaga would have covered it in her presentation, maybe not with the whole slide, but in comments. So that
Okay,
might have
okay.
been why.
Okay, you're right.
Is this, are these students over several campuses, or is it clustered?
Yeah, they're spread out pretty. There's a lot more on the south side of the district, but there are like a couple that like to get into that 20. They are spread out a little bit across the district. Like I said, we have a concentration on the south side of our campus, and so our Vietnamese itinerant teacher that we do have on staff, that's why she kind of focuses on Willow Creek, Lakewood, Wildwood, Tomball Memorial. So she
And
kind
that support is part of the plan,
Yes.
to have that individual. And we hope to continue to have certificated people moving forward if we continue with the numbers, which I think we will, because we see that.
And those students are currently served in an ESL program. And so they still receive all of the language accommodations that they need. The part that we're missing would be like the native language part, so that's how we kind of negotiate, like, okay, well, we don't have it, but we have this teacher, where can she support the most? And then we focus a lot of her support in that early literacy, especially because we know that once we support that, then kids are going to continue to grow. because like some of these like fifth and sixth that are like 14, 16, like those may have been higher, but those kids have done so well that they've reclassified, so that number has gone under 20.
So what do we do, though, as far as, you made the comment earlier about, headphones and this type of thing. So I know there's some self-study, if you will, for these types of programs, right? So are these students getting this kind of self-study um, uh, English language learning? Because, I mean, if they don't understand English, and we have one teacher that's roaming around 20 some odd campuses for 167 students, okay, so what are we doing to help them understand, either teaching them in their native language through headphones or what?
So our ESL program supports language learning with any language. So just how we would support a student that speaks Urdu or Arabic that we might not have enough for a bilingual program, but we still need to support their English proficiency and to be able to access content. So that's going to be a lot of content-based language instruction, a lot of visuals, and so our ESL certified teachers are trained in that. We provide training throughout the year. Our EB specialists, especially for our students that may be newcomers and maybe like on those beginner intermediate levels of TELPAS. Those are students that our specialists work with their teachers to make sure that they know how to support them. We also, when we do have students that may speak a language that no one on the campus speaks, then we do leverage some technology. And so, and a lot of partnership with parents as well.
Just maybe a dumb question, but are we leveraging with the parents to find teachers? So if so we are down that road already.
We also have them assist us at times if we need help with certain translations. Our families have been very helpful. It doesn't mean they want to come teach for us, but they have been very helpful. We do network through their network of individuals. You know of somebody, here or somebody who's moving here. And
Yeah,
Okay. As long as we're doing that, so I mean, we're looking under every book. So if we weren't doing it, that'd be shame on us.
And even though this is the one language that we're, continuing to be hyper-focused on, as Dr. Moreno has said, we have 85 languages. So we're doing this in a lot of languages that I didn't even know existed. There's a lot of languages out there. And so we're doing a lot of unique kudos to the department, the campuses that are making it happen in whatever the language may be, whether it's one child or 28 in a grade level.
So Martha, build on that. So we have 85 identified languages. What is your team actively delivering against how many languages? So we talked about using technology. Is it really 20 languages that we're really doing curriculum delivery? Is it 10? What's your sense we could be 85?
As far
And
as
if it's not a great question right now,
I want to understand the question. So the
you-
tools that are used are to help them, as was mentioned,
Yep.
to understand the English language. Now, remember, you can be deficient in English and your home language. Remember, you can have challenges in Spanish, in Mandarin, in Vietnamese, and in English.
okay, so I'll try to make it simple. We have 85 languages spoken in the district. You have identified the top 5. We talked about using technology for a child that doesn't speak English or no English. That's where I'm trying to get to.
Yes.
How many of those languages are we delivering curriculum instructions and assessments against to try and help those kiddos learn English? Is it 20 of those languages?
Oh,
Of the
I would say
85?
in every one of them.
Yeah, so then,
85
and their
languages.
program, yeah, so depending on, so TA only has an assessment that measures their English proficiency that tells me that they're limited, that identifies them, right? So I can't really measure, like, okay, let me see how, I could do it in Spanish because there's a Spanish test for it. But with that, then the call from the curriculum department is how do kids that are learning a language access curriculum at grade level? And so then that is where we come in with strategy supports, having
it.
teachers certified
I
and
get it. I'm just trying to figure out what is how many of the 85, how many were actually delivering, and I can work on bringing my question. I've just been trying to figure out what are all the strategies and all the work we're doing against how many true languages.
So,
We're identifying a whole bunch. I know for certain we're not teaching
Right.
in the district because one child may identify with
correct. Dr.
I
Webb?
believe, is your question, how many of the instructional materials do we have are delivered in the student's native language? So how many textbooks do we have in Vietnamese
Help
or
me
Urdu?
ask my own question, yeah.
Yeah, so with our electronic text, we do have the ability in some of the areas to translate immediately into Vietnamese. But some of the low incidence languages like Urdu or Mandarin, we're relying on translators because we do not have a lot of instructional materials in that language, nor teachers that understand that language in the written format.
And my basis is just trying to understand the size. What are we talking about? Is it really 3 languages or we're really suffering to, have exceptions?
So the only exception is one, and that's Vietnamese. I don't even think we have a close second, but this is one that we have been watching, I know, for at least 3 years, because we
gonna-
keep getting.
But
I'm gonna
interestingly,
I'm gonna table my question.
go back one slide, Paloma. Okay, one more. Where's the chart that showed maybe it's one more back, the chart that showed the 5 languages?
Oh, that was before this.
There. So is Vietnamese, do you actually have those ranked in order?
Mhm. Yeah, these are the
Okay.
top 5 in order.
So Spanish is by far our biggest one, where we have a bunch of support. And then we've got 169 kiddos at the Japanese or the Vietnamese level, and then it goes down number-wise from there.
Yeah, pretty drastically. Like we're not even close to the 20 in any of the next 3.
Okay.
But how do so of these students, how many come that don't speak any English at all? And then how do we communicate with them through their basic needs?
So I would say like if they're scoring still beginners on TELPAS, like that's pretty limited communication. So what was that, like about 150 when you break it down between the 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we look at our total physical responses, we have visuals, we have some students that are nonverbal completely. And but that's the skill of a teacher to be able to interact in a nonverbal way in order to communicate with students. It doesn't happen a lot in these lower incident languages, but it does happen, and that's the skill of a teacher in an ESL program.
Ready? Okay, kind of how we talked about earlier, their bilingual and ESL certification is on top of a highly certified teacher. And so you get certified in EC6, right, generalist, and then there is a supplemental exam that you can take for bilingual and ESL. And so last year, Tomball submitted 4 certification waivers for teachers that were serving EB students that were not bilingual and ESL certified. We also took the list last year of any folks that were on ESL memos or anything like that from HT. And with the collaboration of the multilingual program with Human Talent, 71% of those uncertified teachers successfully earned their ESL certification. So when we kind of talked about what we're doing is that support. Like we want our teachers that we know are great to continue in those positions. And so we support them through lots of programs, including eBest through A&M. We have local, we have some that we support here as well as a department, and it's just kind of getting them ready for that certification exam. For the bilingual part, there is an oral spoken language component, so it's not just the strategies and things like that. They also have to be fluent in Spanish, and then that would be the same in Vietnamese, right? And so there is an oral component that covers those 4 domains that we talked about. So there is reading, writing, listening, and speaking on that test. Okay. And then as we talk about what our professional development plan is to support our teachers and all of these students across our district, so we use a lot of partners for this, and so Sidelets is a great partner for us. They were able to provide a personalized PD for Small Moves, Big Gains, which really was able to move our teachers with small things that they could do for our kids to learn a lot and grow a ton. Region 4 is also a partner that we are using consistently to leverage all the things that they offer. TA provides a lot of guidance and supports and resources. The Texas Association of Bilingual Education also is able to provide those services. Today, this morning, I spent the morning with our educational consultants from the Sandra Mercuri team for our dual language campuses, with a lot of focus on how we deliver content through language and literacy. And so really focusing on our content is the what, but how we get there is language and literacy, and making sure that that's embedded in everything. I talked a little bit about the eBEST program through A&M. That is a certification prep program that is free to teachers. And also, if they pass their test, they can apply to get a reimbursement through a grant through A&M. So we're hopeful that more of our teachers can continue to leverage that opportunity, and then also our department. And so our department is providing professional development opportunities for teachers throughout the year. We're at collaboratives, we're at planning, and we are at campuses as much as we can. So we're excited to support, and I'm excited to report on growth on that support next year.
Yeah, I think you had some along the way.
Okay.
We did ask a lot of questions, but I think there's a real opportunity here, it looks like. You know, I don't know if you become a magnet district for languages all over the area, but I mean, why not?
Feels that way a little bit,
Yeah,
which is great. We love it.
thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Thank
Yeah.
y'all.
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Okay, moving on to Zach Bowles, the next two reports. Item D is the annual investment report for the 23-24 fiscal year. Our Chief Finance Officer will lead us in that report.
All right, good evening, President McTravick, Dr. Salazar Zamora, members of the board. In accordance with board policy, tonight I'll be presenting on the district's annual investment report. Excuse me if I get the titles mixed up. We're going to do a lot of annual reports over the next few months. But that's going to give us a little recap of the investment activities across the district for our fiscal year 23-24. So in addition to tonight's presentation, you've already received a detailed investment report, covering a number of different items. And so that includes legal requirements for the investment of public funds, annual requirements of the board, benchmark comparisons, year-over-year reviews, as well as look back at the investment strategies for both the current and the prior year. And so after tonight's meeting, we'll make that report posted on our website and available for the public to view. So tonight, I'm just going to hit a little high-level overview of what's in that report. By law, all investments made by the district shall comply with the Public Funds Investment Act as set forth under the Texas Government Code, as well as any additional federal, state, and local regulations. Specifically, the district board policy CDA legal, that defines and details all of the requirements under the Public Funds Investment Act, while CDA local further defines the district-specific type items such as your investment authority, investment strategies, acceptable investments, and internal control. Annually, the Public Funds Investment Act requires the board to do three things. Each of those items are on the agenda for approval tomorrow night. But the first one is that the board shall review the district's investment policy and strategies annually and adopt a written resolution stating that it's done so. In that resolution, it would also document any changes that are being made. At this time, we are not proposing or recommending any changes to our investment policy or strategy. Additionally, the board must approve an independent source or sources for investment training. Historically, the district has utilized the Texas Association of School Boards, the Texas Association of School Business Officials, and Region 4 to provide that investment training. As investment officers, both Claudia Munoz and myself, we have to obtain no less than 8 hours of investment training every 2 years. And so we utilize those organizations to help fulfill that compliance requirement. Finally, the board shall at least annually review, revise, and adopt a list of qualified brokers that can that are authorized to engage in investment transactions with the district. And again, we are not proposing any additional changes to that list of brokers that we're proposing for adoption tomorrow night. Before we move and look into the investment activities for 23-24, I think it's best that we start with a look back at the year prior to that. So 22-23, we saw a lot of changes with the Federal Reserves and their attempt to sort of rein in the inflation that we were seeing nationwide. And so if you look at the table here, you'll see that by June of 2023, the Federal Reserve had gone through a cycle of interest rate increases. And so by June, they had moved from 1.68% all the way up to over 5%. So you can see a comparable increase in the district's rate of return each month. And so throughout the year, we saw an increase each month, giving us an average rate of return in 22-23 of 3.61%. And so leading into 23-24, right there in the July-August range, the Federal Reserve had reached the peak of their investment rate increase cycle. And so they held steady for the next 12 months. And so we were able to recognize 12 months of pretty high interest rate return and average for the year of 5.23%. And we're pretty close to hitting all of our benchmark targets. We look at the 3 and 6 month T-bills as well as tax pool as benchmarks for us, because they're pretty representative of the risk tolerance that the district has with investments, as well as they represent the same type of investments that we're actually allowed to make at the school district. With a 5.23% rate of return, or average rate of return for last year, we were able to generate $25 million in interest income. That's spread out over a number of different funds. Primarily, the generating factor there was our capital projects and the proceeds that we had on hand from the bond sales in 2022 and 2023. So you see $17.6 million there. Those proceeds were on hand to help pay for and finish out Bond 2021 project. And so the interest that we've brought in over the last 2 years, you can see $27 million. That, along with those proceeds, will help us to continue closing out the project from Bond 2021 and opening those new campuses like West Intermediate and West High School. The general fund also fared very well. We picked up an additional $6 million of interest income. As you can see, over the course of the last few years, that's increased greatly. That $157,000 in 2021 is pretty representative of what I've seen during my time in Tomball ISD. So seeing $6 million there last year was pretty nice. From a budget standpoint, we do include a very conservative interest income projection when we're building the budget each year. And so anytime we are able to exceed that projection, it is a plus for us. And so when we bring the audit report to the board for presentation next month, we'll talk a little bit more about how the interest income that we got in 23-24 helped us with our deficit. When we look at the district's portfolio, it's pretty simple. If we don't need cash on hand for the payment of payroll or paying vendors, we're going to keep everything invested as heavily as possible. And so almost 90% of our cash and available funds are invested in the investment pools. So think of Tech Pool, Texas Class, and so that's where our funding is held. We're trying to maximize our rate of return as much as possible and keep as little cash on hand as we possibly can just to meet our expenditure requirements. That changes just a tiny bit when we look at the snapshot in 2024. And really the change there is just, it's a snapshot at a point in time on June 30th. And at that point, we needed additional funds set aside in our bank account in order to meet those expenditures that we had for paying vendors. Specifically, we're closing out Tomball West Elementary. And so we had some large payments going out to vendors. And so we needed additional funds sitting in cash to be able to back those payments that we were making. You can see that variability a little bit better when you look at things from a month-to-month standpoint. And so, again, just as you move through that snapshot with each month, you're going to see fluctuations in what we have in cash on hand and what's invested in the pools. That's just sort of representative there again of what we need from a cash flow standpoint to pay our bills, as well as the timing of when revenue comes into the district from either the state or taxpayers through payment of property taxes. And occasionally when you see those zeros up there, we hit the nail on the head, and we're able to, as of that snapshot date, we've got everything fully invested that we possibly can. Looking at the investment strategies in 23-24, they're really no different than what we do every year. There's some slight variations depending upon the interest rate environment that we're operating in, but we're heavily focused on three fundamentals. And first and foremost, that's going to be the safety and protection of principal. We're not going to make investments that are going to cost the district money. Liquidity always comes next, just making sure that we have funds available on hand to meet the requirements that we have from a payroll and vendor standpoint. And then interest rate return is really our last concern there. Again, we stay conservative with our expectations and projections when it comes to budgeting for interest income. And so anything we can generate above that projection is just on the plus side for us. Looking at the interest and investment environment now, we saw that the Federal Reserve did make a cut in September. They reduced interest rates by 50 basis points. They're down now to 5%. There's another expected interest rate cut coming in November, and then several additional cuts coming over the course of the next year. So for us, we're going to continue to look at and maintain our investments in the pools, maximize as much as we can that's there, and take advantage of the interest rates at the rates there are now as best we can. But we're also going to look at short-term investment opportunities like CDs, where we can lock in higher interest rates for a little bit longer while the Federal Reserve is making those cuts. And so the combination of those two, we really feel like are going to help us continue to meet and hopefully exceed our benchmarks that we're targeting. Any questions?
Thank you so much.
I had one question, sorry. So Zach, we had money in the bank and we can invest it, and it's very low risk, right? It's government money, it's taxpayer money, right? So we have to do that, and we earned a pretty decent income on it, or interest income. So we had how much in savings? Like on average, 80 million, something like that. If I looked at that slide that you had, somewhere in there, right? So 50,
Around
70,
90
80.
million.
And with that 5%, we were able to clear 25 million, something like that over the year.
And that was across all funds, so not just general funds.
So where I was going with this is, I hear tell the state's got like 32 billion sitting in the bank. I wonder what 5% interest is on 32 billion for it to sit there. And I'm sure they can't invest it in, an index fund either. It has to be. So that's got to be a very, very big number that the state has earned in interest as well.
In comparison to what we are able to generate, I would expect that.
Yeah. Yep. It's got to be a huge number. Okay. Was just wondering if they probably had the same thing going on with the money they had sitting around. And hopefully they're feeling generous. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Zach. I believe you have the next report, delinquent tax report.
All right, so I'm not going to take away from this report. I'm going to bring up Mr. Mike Darlow, and he's going to introduce his team, and they're going to take it.
Good evening. Good to see everybody.
Choked up to see you here.
I'm still here. Yes,
We are glad you're here and that Leslie's with you.
that's the more important part. So first, I want to make sure y'all do know Cindy Garcia. Back.
Yes.
Cindy has done a phenomenal job taking over, bringing stability to the tax office. She's very professional, had a lot of experience. We work with her day in and day out, working through a myriad of issues that come up in the tax office. Her fun is about to begin because the 2024 tax bills are at the printer, which means in about a week, she's going to be hearing from lots of taxpayers about their 2024 bill and start bringing in revenue so then that can invest it and get more interest for you. In the meantime, we are doing our small part to collect the delinquent taxes that are owed to the district. And I thought it was appropriate that Leslie will give you the report tonight. And I also want to introduce Hayden Bartley, who you met last year. And, Hayden now has a second child, so it's 2 future Tomball ISD students because he lives just around the corner. So with that, I will turn it over to Leslie. And again, and as always, we appreciate the opportunity to work with the district and seeing all the principals up here tonight and everything. I remember back to the day when, even before John was on the board and Mark was on the board, when it was just a couple of elementaries, middle school, and how far you've come. So congratulations to the district. Leslie, be brief, be brilliant.
Right. Good
Thank
evening,
you,
Dr.
Mike.
Z and esteemed board members. So without further ado, we have the delinquent tax collection report. I know it's the moment that you've all been waiting for this evening. So do note as we go through this report, these are the delinquent taxes only. Cindy and her team at the tax office are doing an outstanding job of collecting the district's taxes. As a matter of fact, they collected around 98% of the 2023 delinquencies before turning over just a little tiny piece of the pie just to put this report into perspective. So this is a culmination of all of the delinquent tax years, which will highlight the 2023 throughout. So first chart we have is the taxes released to the firm for tax years 2018 through 2023. You'll notice that the turnover amount for 2023 is somewhat lower than what was turned over for 2022. Your district has had an enormous amount of growth over the last few years. And the difference in this, we can speculate. Some of the factors could be the timing of posting of payments from whenever the tax office updates me with their data. Sometimes they still have credit card payments to process. Taxpayers may postmark their payment, and if they're paying by check, the tax office honors that postmark. So sometimes those payments get applied at a later time, and also the residence homestead exemption increased last year. So like I said earlier, they collected 98%, and what was left over was turned over to our office in July of this year. So the good news is the vast majority of your taxpayers are paying their taxes. Chart 2 shows a percentage of the taxes remaining due by each year. I won't spend an inordinate amount of time on that. And 3 shows us taxes and percentages due by year. You'll notice the largest section is the 2023 percentage. That's what we started working on in July of this year. And as you'll see, this percentage just gets smaller year by year. And there's actually very small percentages due for that 18 and prior tax year. We have it grouped together. It's representing 20%, but each year really has a small amount left. And some of the reasons for those older delinquencies are going to be your over 65 deferrals that have been on account for some time, or could be properties that went through the tax sale process and were struck off to the district and we're waiting to find the right tax resale buyer. Moving along to chart 4, this gives you a snapshot of your delinquent tax roll. It is your roll by status, and this tells us where things are in the collection process. For example, you'll notice the largest section is the action pending section at 40%. This is predominantly the 2023 taxes that we started working on in July, so we are busy trying to reach out to the taxpayer, trying to make meaningful contact with them, let them know about the situation, see if we can get a commitment to pay, work out a payment agreement. If those efforts fail, we do title research. We ascertain if there's a lien holder on the property. We attempt to collect the property taxes if there is a lien holder on the property. And if those efforts fail, we move on to the next largest section, which is the suit litigation section at 28%. So when we don't get the taxpayer's attention or they don't get on the payment agreement that we offer, sometimes it's necessary for us to file a delinquent tax suit. And often that does get their attention. And we still work with taxpayers all along the way. And that section represents everything in that process, from suit just filed to trial setting to judgment to waiting for the next tax sale. And then the last one I'm going to mention is the deferral section at 18%. These are taxpayers that are over 65 or have a disability, and they have elected to defer payment of the taxes on their residence homestead that is only available on their residence homestead. They may only have one of those at a time. And as long as that deferral is on the property, they apply for that at the appraisal district. We cannot make efforts to collect the taxes. However, that taxpayer may elect to voluntarily make payments or pay the taxes during the pendency. So the last 7 charts I have are some historical collection data. I would like to focus on the last 2 years of the historical collection data being the 2022 tax year. We're almost at 80% of what was turned over to us in July of 23. And then for the 2023 tax year, which we started working on July 1 of this year, we're almost at 40%. After that, I have a top 20 report for you representing the top 20 taxpayers, delinquent taxpayers for the district. Note that we do not include deferred taxpayers in this section. And just to note, since preparing this report about a month ago, number 9 and 19 have paid in full, and there have been significant payments on 13 and 18. And just to let you know, and talk about our website, we have tax sales going on in November, both in Harris and Montgomery County, that include properties that have delinquencies to Tomball ISD. So if you're curious in following the tax sale properties, you can visit our website, pdfcm.com. The Harris listing is live at this time. You have to click on the link for Precinct 4, and the Montgomery listing is going live this week. Any questions?
Were you going to ask something, Michael? Did I hear you? No. On the uncollectible, is that just legal action didn't develop? I'm just curious.
It certainly could be, and that is coding that we put on the account when we deem them internally uncollectible. It could be that they are beyond the statute of limitations, the legal statute of limitations for collecting the taxes. For real property, that's a 20-year statute of limitations. For personal property, it's a 4-year limitation period. There are a few properties on your delinquent tax roll that we don't believe to be mapped or exist at all. And when we notice those, we do notify the appraisal district to let them know. But in the meantime, we code them as uncollectible, because if we can't find it on a map, we can't sell it at a tax sale. Or it could be a business that has closed. We know they're closed. We know they've liquidated their assets. A corporation that's defunct would fall under that example.
Hey, Leslie, when you look at the number 6 in the top 20, so is that, does that owner want to have the ability to have some type of judgment that they can then use against the buyer, or they just, I mean,
On number 6, I'm scratching my head because I have been over backwards to try to contact them and let them know about the situation, because we have obtained a judgment. They did not answer the lawsuit, so it was a default judgment obtained. I have, with Cindy's help, identified who their counsel is. I've emailed their counsel, and I've yet to receive a response. So I'm scratching my head on that one as well.
Okay, thanks.
If you know anybody, I'd be happy to get in touch with them.
Great. There you go. All right. Thank you so much. We
My
certainly
pleasure.
appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you
Have
for
a
the
great evening.
continued partnership. All right. And then our final report for the evening is the district-wide intruder detection audit report finding. Dr. Stephen Gutierrez, our Chief Operating Officer, will give us a brief bit of information prior to our closed session.
All right. Good evening, President McStravick, Superintendent Salazar Zamora, members of the board. I'm here tonight to provide an update regarding the state intruder detection audit. The Texas Education Agency conducted an intruder detection audit pursuant to legal requirements. 3 schools were reviewed in September, and a finding was identified at one of the 3 campuses. All corrective actions have been completed at this time. Further details have been provided and will be discussed with the board in executive session for purposes of safety and security.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. We have no public comment, so, Board President, I'd like to continue.
Yeah,
With the
I
review?
just want to say something real quick on the public comment side. So there was been some, maybe just trying to clarify some stuff.
Okay.
We have the ability to, people can sign up and speak to us on any agenda item on Monday night. The
Yes,
same
sir.
is true on Tuesday night. Now, Tuesday night, we also allow for more general comments.
Correct.
But if it's an agenda item, people can sign up and come speak from the podium on Monday night or Tuesday night. So I just want to make sure that, if there's any clarification that's needed on that point. I think sometimes people get a little confused and think they can't come on Monday nights, but they certainly can if it's an agenda item and talk to us at the same time that we're discussing items that we may vote on tomorrow. So wanted to make sure I pointed that out and that it
Absolutely.
got on our recording so that anybody that's listening to this knows that come on down, sign up on to speak to us on Monday night anytime you want, as long as it's an agenda item.
And this board has actually made that easier as far as the opportunity to sign up online, which has
Really?
been some time.
Well,
Not-
Mr. President, that's probably the best, the Monday night is probably the best way to talk on Monday night. That way it gives us 24 hours to think about what they said, and maybe that much of them might do it on the day of. It's a lot harder to think about and do that. So if you're going to talk on Monday and get it out of the way, and that way we all have time to chew on it and ask more questions.
Thank you for that comment. That is important, and we do welcome the community's input, questions, comments, or concerns. Any feedback?
So at this point then, I guess we'll turn it back over to you to review the business agenda for tomorrow.
Yes, so the review of the business agenda for October 15th, 2024. I'd really like to have a conversation with the board about what tomorrow night looks like. The first will be a report from our board president, John E. McStravick, on the annual board training hours. Thank you for those. We also have the approval for the acceptance of a donation in the amount of $5,712.85 from Creekside Forest Elementary School PTO, and we continue to be grateful for all of our PTOs that support all of our incredible campuses. The rest of the items you see every month, but I'd like to have a conversation about the considered agenda items.
Dr. Z, before you move to that,
Yes, sir.
so on the consent agenda item F, that's a recurring item. on
Yes, sir.
our,
The check register?
Yeah, check register.
Yes.
Publicly available, right? It's on our
Absolutely.
website.
Very transparent.
It's searchable.
Very.
Okay, so if Zach and his team write a check to, I'm just going to pick Amazon to buy some sort of supplies for a certain amount, the check number, the date, quantity, the item that was purchased, that is available for the public to go view.
Yes.
Got it. Oh, and there's a clarification. Thank you, Zach.
Dr. Z, sorry to clarify there. We do not have our check register available online.
Oh, good clarity.
There is a reason, though, behind that. Years ago, the reason why it was removed from the website is that we had a significant number of fraudulent activity against us. They were using the check register to create POs and try to pass those off as district issued, and creating issues with vendors where they were receiving orders from the district that were not actually from the district. Also taking advantage of that, they were trying to check against our bank account, and so we decided in best interest of the district and protection to remove that from the website.
I had forgotten that. Thank you for that clarity. We used to do that, but unfortunately, because of criminal activity, that was done a few years back now. Thank you for that clarification.
Hey, but for one thing, but if somebody did want to
Right.
look at it, they could come to your office or somewhere in the district and visualize that, or
Yes, it is public information, so it could be requested.
so they just gotta ask for it.
Is there, so not to solve the problem, but is there a simpler way to present that kind of information, meaning date, amount, just some sense of what the check was about? Is there a simpler way to do it and still sort of solve for the transparency that exists? And if not, put you on the
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we do have to take action like that. I was in a higher ed Zoom, as I mentioned earlier today, and got a message from one of our principals, Dr. Collier, and then midway through the Zoom, I get another from Dr. Marciando that apparently I was sending out a text message to the entire district from my personal cell phone, which was not my personal cell phone, asking or sharing information. And so it is that the danger, right, of criminal activity and individuals out there wanting to get information. I don't know what happens if you respond to the message because it didn't come from me. The biggest clue is that it said, this is a message from Dr. Martha Salazar Zamora, and if you know me, I'm Dr. Z. And staff members know that too. So always having to be mindful. I think the next thing might be, oh, I'm tied up in a meeting. Could you send some gift cards to XYZ? I don't know. I hope it's that. I hope if that's the case, it's not something that would really happen to their cell phone information. But criminal activity is something that's alive and well everywhere. So have to be mindful. But thank you for those questions and thank you for the clarification on that. Moving on to the considered agenda, we have a couple of items I'd like to discuss with you. The first one is to adopt a resolution approving the investment broker dealer list that we've had a conversation tonight on the report item from Mr. Bowles. Item B is to adopt a resolution also stating that the board has received the investment policies and strategies for 24-25 and designation of the superintendent, CFO, and director of risk management as investment officers for the district. The next item for consideration is the adoption of the resolution approving TASB, TASA, and TASBO for its local affiliates, TexPool and Region 4 as investment training providers. This is something that you do annually. Item D is to approve the purchase of the formative learning platform that is listed for 7th through 12th grade social studies using the TEA Notice of Grant Award for the 24 through 26 year interactive learning grant. Very grateful for the team that continues to look for additional learning grants. This is cycle 1 in the amount of $225,078.69. I know there was additional backup information, so wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see that. Mr. Unser?
Yeah, could you provide a quick summary, as you had before, as to what this is, to kind of explain what news ELA is? And how it'll be
So
utilized?
it is similar. We've had other partners in the past, but this is one that we feel very confident with, and it is an opportunity for students to be able to continue to have interactive information regarding social studies in somewhat real time. What have I left out, Dr. Webb?
There is a lot of audio content,
Nice.
video content, primary source content, such as Declaration of Independence, Constitution, the ability for teachers to create quizzes, all pushed out through all pushed through our school.
Okay,
Which
so
I think is awesome.
yeah, more resources are always good. Okay, so accessible through ClassLink and Schoology, right? So similar platform, it's not something new there. And it'll take them to primary sources, which I think is very important, right? As you mentioned, the Constitution itself, not interpretation or something like that, right? Okay. And then the second question I had was, these are grant dollars, right?
Correct.
Something perhaps in the future I think might be good for us also is that, you're right, there's a lot of work that goes on with grants. Kind of seeing some kind of summary of all the grants that the district has participated in, which I know is quite lengthy, but and I know there's a lot of work that goes into that, right? Not just this one. There's security grants, other governmental grants, things like that.
Mental health and wellness grants.
Right.
A lot of different.
That's helped with the PTAC and things like that. So, the Grow Your Own grant, right? to
Houston
participate there.
Endowment, exactly.
So all of those, it might be interesting to see a list and the kind of numbers that the team has generated, bringing resources back into our district would be awesome to see.
I like that request. I think that's very good for us to do a review of not just taxpayer dollars, not just dollars that we depend upon, of course, state and federally, but what are we finding? What as a district with your board support? I love that idea.
And can we post this?
Sure. Take us a minute. We'll put it all together. I say us.
Yes.
Tactfuls.
Someone will do it.
Claudia. No, actually, it's Sochi. Somewhere in this vicinity. Very good. Okay. The next item I want to discuss with you is, of course, important, safety and security. Approve the purchase of security camera upgrades from Preferred Technologies in the amount of $901,917.50 using Bond 2021 funds. I'm always wanting to look at additional upgrades when it comes to safety and security.
Hey, Martha,
Yes, sir.
on that, in my review of all of our materials. I ask about TES, and they're appropriating, I don't know, $5,500 from their education fund is what it looked like to buy two-way
Like walkie-talkies?
walkie-talkies, and it
Correct.
was for security purposes. And so I don't know if I got a reply on that. I may have. There may have been another email that I didn't see late in the day. But I'd like to know if that's common, uncommon, that campuses replacing the security. I mean, to be campus specific, that they're managing that kind of doesn't sit well with me, that the district isn't the one overriding or at least providing for it. I know we have an officer at every campus. Here's cameras all over the district. I just want to make sure every campus has everything they need. And do all campuses then have to reappropriate dollars for new walkie-talkies when they need them for security purposes? That's my question.
So to answer your question, no, they do not have everything that they perhaps need in every single area, right? Because we'd always like an upgrade in this. I guess it's a need versus a want. Let me quantify that. But there are times where things may go out, or you want an additional amount because you feel that an additional person may need that tool that the campus doesn't provide, the district rather doesn't provide that, and that would come upon the campus for a need. But if there is a security need and there is no means for that campus to get that, rest assured that the campus, Dr. Gutierrez and the team will ensure that they have what they need. So, good point, good question. Then, of course, we're going to ask that you approve both the campus improvement plans and the district improvement plans that were well presented tonight. So thank you to the team for doing such a great job. And then, unfortunately, it seems like as if every month something comes to this board, and I really, it's one of my least favorite things, but it is something that you hear me say every time. We make a commitment to a staff member. We give you a contract. It's for a year. We ask that you honor it. We will pay you for a year, but you have to work for that year. If you leave, then we will sanction your contract, and we are very clear about that. And we are very, Dr. Reeves is in the audience somewhere. I see her in the pretty blue. She knows that we keep that very standard so that no one person is treated any differently. We have 2 individuals, so it's recommended that the Board of Education render a finding under Texas Administrative Code section listed that good cause did not exist as required by Texas Education Code sections listed for Tanya Saunders Woods to resign her employment and Natalie Zavala. One was actual abandonment of the position, and the other is leaving education completely. And again, our students were left without their certificated teacher that they needed, and that is unfortunate. And that concludes our discussion for tomorrow night. I will turn the meeting back over to our president.
All right. Anybody got any other questions for Martha? All right. Well, at this point, the board's going to have to go into closed session to review the security update. But before we do that, I will open the floor up to my fellow board members for any comments they may have. Anybody got anything? Okay.
So I apologize for missing last month's meeting. It was a work obligation that I could not avoid. But I noticed that the board voted 6-0, or what I would call unanimously, last month to adopt the tax rate resolution with a total property tax rate of $1.0629. And there were the 2 components of maintenance and operations as well as interest and savings. So I did a little math. So what did that mean? And I just picked a home appraisal value of $300,000. If I took this current year, 2024's, a tax rate, which is 1.0652, and I look at what the board approved at 1.0629, I see that 1.0629, which the board approved, is a lesser tax rate for 2025 than for 2024. So my simple math shows that what was approved was a tax rate reduction. And I believe there was some pretty healthy discussion about what it meant to a taxpayer. But simple math, what it means out of pocket is actually less money. And so the board adopted a 1.0629 tax rate, which is a decrease in the tax rate for a home of $300,000. And so that results in a slight decrease in what that home homeowner would be paying. And so I just wanted to congratulate the board. I wasn't here for the vote. I would have joined in the vote with you, but the message loud and clear that USIC did was lower the tax rate. And what that means to our taxpayers is they have a few more dollars in their pocket than they would have had in the previous year. So thank you for that.
Okay.
John, just a couple other comments, if I may.
Sure.
I wanted to make sure that the community understood the tax rate piece. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the superintendent and the Great Fine Arts Department for what was a fantastic community event, Tomball community event that was moved to San Antonio, where 250 students and all of their great fine arts leadership put on a 30-minute production that I understand is available online.
It
and
is. It
video.
is. We've shared the link. It was spectacular. If somebody has missed it, you have missed out. I've watched it several times.
It was unbelievable, and I think certainly represented what is culture, that great feeling that we've come to enjoy here in Tomball through our finance program. Next comment, I'd like to thank the Chamber, the Greater Tomball Area Chamber of Commerce, for what was a very well done, well run, well facilitated forum where candidates that are seeking election November 5th in the district had an opportunity to answer the same questions, provide responses to those questions, so the community got to know them a little bit better. That as well was live streamed and is available for replay and rewatch. And so thanks to Bruce Hillegeist and what we saw at the Region 3 community team helped facilitate that. So thank you for that. The next thing I had on my list was what I think is probably one of the most exciting community events, and that's this coming Friday night. I know there's a football game that's played. There's two teams. We call them rivalries potentially, but it's a community event, and I'm looking forward to this wonderful activity where we honor veterans. There's an event before the game, certainly halftime, but there's that awesome feeling and experience that exists. See so many students on the field performing. Certainly see the helicopter, the flag flying, and ultimately the fireworks that occur after. It's amazing. I can't stop talking about how excited I am for Friday night.
It is definitely a special community event. If somebody has not participated, they have certainly missed out. We have a large number of veterans that will be honored at a dinner before, and then several that will be out on the field that evening. I know Justin was commenting today, our other Justin, Warnash, on the logistics of ensuring that everybody is out on the field representing their various branches. So it's one of my favorite games. I shouldn't have a favorite, I know, but it is one of my favorite games. And I love whatever team wins.
Tina, your mic's on. Were you wanting to speak?
I was just going to say the performance that our kids did. This week we had great volleyball, great tennis. Their area champs.
Yep. Over in
Tomball
Conroe.
Memorial did a great job. Great tennis.
I know not everybody enters from the front entrance, but if you get a minute, we have some additional artwork that was out on display in San Antonio. It was a full fine arts experience, right, Paulette? A big thank you again to Paulette Tomlinson, who probably had some sleepless nights moving up to that, and Dr. Gutierrez for ensuring that our students were there, and they proudly represented every single one of us. It was a moment. I had a front row seat, and I just kept saying, don't cry, you have to speak after this. And that was my biggest task to not, I did, but not enough that I could speak.
Well, I think what's really amazing, and we talked to some of the students about this before the presentation, was, I mean, this was a summer project leading into the fall.
Yeah.
So our kiddos and Paulette and others were volunteering their time to do this during the summer. And in some cases, if they were at Tomball High School, they were giving up the opportunity to be at the homecoming game.
Correct.
Or although I understand
They
that
had a choice.
they had a choice. There was an option for them to actually come back as soon as the presentation was over, but maybe they wanted to be with their buddies a little bit longer.
Dinner at Rainforest Cafe beat out,
Yeah.
I think, most.
Okay. But I mean, that's really cool that we had so many kids that were willing to give up time during the summer to put that presentation together and represent us so well. Really cool. Justin?
Sure, I'll chime in with a couple things. So yes, it was an amazing performance that the students put on, as we heard here. Absolutely amazing. When the band came in at the very end, that was really put it over the top. When the band came in, it has been a very busy time. Tomball High School's homecoming, Tomball Memorial's High School homecoming and parade. Unfortunately, I couldn't make that one. I had a business trip out of town. I did send a few surrogates in my place there to represent our household.
They did well.
Hopefully, they did well. Okay, good.
Threw out candy and everything.
It's also the end of the first, well, I guess it was last week, end of the first marking period already, which unbelievable how fast time goes by. Couldn't believe that. What else did I want to mention? Oh, also while we've been gone, 6th year in a row, #1 district in Harris County.
Each.
Number one best
number
teachers,
one
number
best-
one plus.
I was
best
getting
place
there,
to-
but okay,
Keep
go
saying
ahead.
them.
But yes, best teachers, best place to teach,
Correct.
which I think is really, really, really a big deal, right? Because we will continue to grow, and we need more of the best. The best are here, as we know, but we need more of the best here. So those kind of things just kind of reinvest in itself and recycle and keep building on what's a great thing here. Looking forward to the Patriotic Show this weekend on Friday. What else did I want to mention? Oh, the Parent University next week. I mentioned it in the beginning, but again, tomorrow night at 7, I think it is, over at the Staff Development Center across the street. I plan on stopping by on Keeper Road. Thank you. Lots of good stuff going on. It's a busy time of year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of what I was going to address has already been mentioned, so I'll mention the niche. We pronounce that niche.
Heard it both ways.
So I'll be honest. I have, for the longest, I've thought, are we just buying that designation?
No.
You know what I mean? Did anybody else guess that? Like,
Can't
where does
buy
that
it.
even come from? I've never heard of
It's
this
not for
entity.
sale.
Who are these people? Who are they grading? Where do they come from? Are they in our back pocket? So I've had all those thoughts. And we're in Minnesota. My wife and I were up in Minnesota. And in Little Canada, Minnesota, the advertising of their school district was their niche rating. And it just validated everything for me. So I'm just really proud of our niche rating because it's seen in other parts of the country because I'm just unfamiliar with it outside of us. You know what I mean? I'm kind of myopic. My world's pretty small. But I just thought I'd say that if anybody's ever doubted that, you can just look it up. It's got some validity to it. There's a lot of good news in the rating we were getting. Just thought I'd mention it. So thank you.
Glad you saw that.
All right. Are there any other comments from my fellow board members? All right. With that, we will go ahead and recess into a closed meeting. The Board of Trustees will convene in a closed meeting for the purpose authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, including but not limited to the following sections and purposes. Section A, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with board attorney regarding all matters as authorized by law. B, Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberation regarding purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Item C, Texas Government Code Section 551.074, deliberation regarding appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. Item D, Texas Government Code 551.076, deliberation regarding security personnel or devices. No vote will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. It is now 8:15. We are adjourned. Well, we are recessed. All right, it is now 9:02, and we are out of executive session, and we have reconvened in open session. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Mr. Lewandowski, seconded by Mr. Shield. All those in favor, raise your hand. We are now adjourned.